In the same spirit of finding joy in the end of year holidays, as well as the long awaited release of the Diamond and Pearl remakes, I decided to go back and bust out my old Pokemon Platinum version. The very same cartridge I've had for almost 13 years now. And I did this because I wanted to get myself a good old fashioned Gen 4 Wi Fi battle because they are amazing and I haven't had one in a long time. And I had my enthusiasm for Sinnoh rejuvenated recently, just like everyone else has. So I thought it was perfect timing. And that, renewed enthusiasm for Sinnoh is also why I decided to do it on Platinum as opposed to Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So those of you who have only ever seen competitive Gen 4 through something like Showdown, which only has Heart Gold and Soul Silver sprites, then you're in for some differences here. Because in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, then all the Gen 1 and 2 Pokemon had new sprites compared to what they had in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. There was a difference for some in Diamond, between Diamond, Pearl, and then Platinum, of course. Like something like Houndoom had a different sprite in Diamond and Pearl, and then Platinum, and then Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Whereas something like Salamence didn't change at all across all those games. But yeah, so this includes Gen 1 and 2 Pokemon include things like Tyranitar, of course, so you're about to see some real old school stuff. Heart Gold and Soul Silver also had some fun moveset animation updates for things like Superpower and Outrage. So that's fun as well. Oh, and another cool thing while we're on these little details, which I adore, and I remember all of them because, of course, I do. Come on. Then in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, then U-turn was spelled with a capital T. So it'd be capital U, capital T, and then URN. And then in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, then they made the T lowercase, which I thought was more appropriate. But since this is Platinum, then we will... if you play competitive on Showdown, then U-turn is with a lowercase t. But you're going to see here, back in the day. I'm going to be using that one a lot in this video. Get ready. With zero irony at all. I'm fully embracing my status as a Pokemon grandpa. Yeah, we're going to see that. This is going to be the first ever slowed down Wi-Fi battle. Because ever since Maryland blazed the trail for us way back in '07, oh, he was really a hero. I'm not even joking, by the way. Maryland was awesome. Yeah, so ever since he blazed the trail, look up Maryland versus Untouchable if you want a slice of history. He sped up his Wi-Fi battles, and then everyone else followed suit. I think he even had it in his description. Like, these games take a while with the animations and whatnot, so I sped it up and threw some music over it. And then everyone else sped up their Wi-Fi battles too, because it's true. The animations take a while, the text takes a while, especially with things like leftovers every turn. And eventually music gave way to narrations, as we used to call them, and then at some point they just became like commentary. No, hashtag not my. I don't know where I was going with that. It was a good idea, but I didn't have the words ready for it. But you get the general sentiment, which is all that really matters. So, yeah, so I am going to not be doing that because I like to talk a lot of words at the viewer. More like talk a lot of words at the listener, am I right? Um, Actually, one of the cool things I thought about, one of the things that I thought was cool about MTG Xerxes, another piece of Pokemon history, he was the original guy who narrated all his Wi-Fi battles, as opposed to just slapping music over them, as was the default back then. And people really liked his videos for that reason. And not only because he narrated, but because he was really good at it. And in fact, he was so good at it that a lot of people said, your descriptions of what's going on in the game are so vivid and so detailed and so precise that even when I'm not watching the battle itself, like if I just have it on in the background or whatever, I still know exactly what's happening and what the situation is. And I thought that was really cool. And that's what I'm aspiring to here. I mean, if you're, if you watch my channel, then you do it for the extended rants. Well, not rants because they're not like angry screaming about something. Not all the time, anyway. But yeah, they're extended talkings, let's say, because I can do words good. My mind's still there. Yeah, so I don't think you'll mind the lengthened format for this Wi-Fi battle. As you can tell, I'm really cracking up. I really need these holidays. Um, yeah, so normally they would be sped up, but I'm slowing them down because I like to talk a lot of words at the viewer slash listener, and I would hate to not be able to get them all out because there's just so much to say, and I love my detail. Um, and normally I would say, it doesn't really matter if you don't look at the screen. That's half the appeal. But for this one, I would say that you would probably want to, simply because, if you're Wi-Fi battling, that it's for the aesthetics, for the experience, for the joy of, playing on the actual games. I mean, why am I Wi-Fi battling after all these years? Because it's just so fun. I mean, Showdown is great and all, yeah, whatever, if you want the competitive experience. But I mean, compared to the fun of the actual games, where it's like serious but not that serious, and there's just so much more. It's so much more fully engaging with the actual games themselves. It's You can't match it with Showdown. Obviously, the convenience for the competitive purpose, blah blah blah. That's not what we're here for. We're here for the joy of the actual game. Uh, so I would. That's why I would recommend actually watching the this video. I mean, if you want to listen to it, it's totally up to you, of course. And if you want to watch, but you're not really on board with the super slowed down thing, then on my second channel, then I have uploaded a version which is sped up and has music, just like in the olden days. And since it's on my second channel, which doesn't really have subscribers or anything, it means I can put on copyrighted music on those videos and not suffer for it. So yeah, there's some other Wi-Fi battles on that channel, and an amazing, fun fan edit I made of a certain movie, but you'll have to go there to find it. I think it's hilarious. Anyway, where was I going with that? Not to the actual battle yet. No, there's too much to say. um, yeah, so this is going to be slowed down, and the first Wi-Fi battle ever to be slowed down. I mean, there were people who slowed things down, like partially, just for like emphasis in certain parts. Like for example, Cool Trainer Alex, he once had a Wi-Fi battle against Roscoe, and he double switched, which was a really big deal back then on Wi-Fi. Um, People like to say, oh, they were all just a bunch of scrubs. And at first I was like, yeah, Wi-Fi battles were just a bunch of scrubs. And then I go back and watch them sometimes, and I was like, Jesus, we were good. uh, which is always, it's a pleasant surprise. You don't give yourself enough credit sometimes, and I think, well, just so I don't go too off tangent. Anyway, so Cool Trainer Alex had this Wi-Fi battle against Roscoe, and he made this double switch, and he slowed that double switch down, and threw some choirs and some orchestral epicness over there to make it more epic. Um, and because it was just that amazing. But no one ever actually slowed down an entire Wi-Fi battle because that would be ridiculous. So once again, I am following in Marilyn's footsteps and blazing a trail of my own, really testing my viewers' patience and tolerance. Speaking of epic, one of the great things about going back to actually play on Pokemon Platinum is that you have this little, trip through time of sorts, and seeing as I'm unironically saying, back in the day or back in my day and all those, I'm just fully embracing my role as or my status, whatever word you want to use, as a Pokemon grandpa, basically. Then just to think back about those times is crazy. Like we used to say the word epic all the time. It's like, oh, dude, that double switch was epic. Well, that didn't happen enough. We would just say, oh, this battle was epic. Sometimes you would even put it in the title, like Wi-Fi battle number 35, parentheses, epic. Maybe put it in some caps just for really emphasizing just how epic that battle was. And it's true, many of those battles were in fact epic. Yeah, epic in a good way, and then of course there was its counterpart, the epic fail. I'm just imagining what like a younger viewer who was like barely born around the time it was going on, like what they must be thinking listening to this is like, what is this guy talking about? Epic fail. But let me tell you, at the time, it was the best. Oh, let me put it this way. Back in '09 and 2010 and, even '08 and '07, those years were really something. Back then, the biggest song in the world was TikTok. TikTok was the biggest song in the world and not a social media app. The good old days. Anyway, I suppose I should probably start the battle at some point. So yeah, I went looking for a battle because there's a dedicated server for people who are looking for Gen 4 and 5 Wi-Fi battle still. Bless them. I mean, bless the people who have made it possible to Wi-Fi battle again. If you want a Wi-Fi battle, please get in touch with me through Discord. I would love to. Yeah, so thank you to the people who have made that possible for all of us. And the people who have put together that community. It's also a Discord community. For those who still love doing it. I mean, you don't even have to battle. You can just use Wi-Fi for like trading and mystery gift and stuff like that. So, yeah. Oh, and finally, before we get into the battle at long last, since we're all in the Sinnoh spirit, then I decided to. I've been talking for 11 minutes already? Oh my goodness. Well, that's what you're in for here. You should know better. Or rather, that shouldn't surprise you. Although, I just said, it's good to surprise yourself sometimes. My God. Anyway, my team is only Gen 4 Pokemon. Because, I mean, come on, they're awesome. And this also did give me the perfect excuse to slip a Garchomp in there and be like, surprise! And you can't be upset because, it's an all Sinnoh team, so I had to, if you think about it. And then ultimately I decided not to be that guy, but yeah, my team is, it's perfect for Wi-Fi because it's the perfect mix of competitive and fun. It's some strategy, and then it's just things I think are cool, that kind of stuff. If I wanted to, be super optimal or whatever, gross, I would play on Showdown. But I'm not doing that. So, because I want the full experience. And the full Wi-Fi experience means using awesome stuff. So, my opponent is MadThanos, because who could ask for a mightier foe than, he's even got like 6 Pokeballs to go with his 6 Infinity whatevers. So, now we will get the music started, and since we are in the holiday spirit, then we have a perfect. I'm losing my words. I'm cracking up. We have the Snowy Route from Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. The remix by Zame, who is an excellent Pokemon remixer, and I recommend you check out his channel. And yeah, so Snowy Holidays and Gen 4 in the flesh, so to speak. What else could you ask for? Perfect holiday. This is my Christmas movie. This is my Die Hard. Let's call it like that. Yeah. All right. So we've got the music going, and now let's get into the battle at long last. So I am leading. Since we're in the Sinnoh spirit, then my lead is Staraptor because come on, it's Staraptor, the best bird, hence the nickname. I also think Best Bird used Brave Bird looks awesome on screen, so a lot of good choices coming together there and coalescing into one amazing choice, if I say so myself. So, I'm using an Adamant Choice Band Staraptor because it destroys everything, truly. I mean, resisting it is not enough. You need to be resistant and have a ton of investment, and even then, defensive investment, obviously. So, pretty much everything is going to get destroyed. And I do favor Adamant for the purpose of doing insane things like 2-KOing Tyranitar, potentially. Yeah, that's right. Offensive T-Tar can be 2-KO'd by Brave Bird. and pretty much always is with Stealth Rock, if I recall correctly. Same for like offensive Heatran. And in neutral base 100 with max speed is still really good because it still outruns a lot of common offensive Pokemon like max speed, Rotom, and Suicune, for example. So I generally prefer it. It's the same idea as why I think Adamant is better on something like Choice Band Flygon to draw, a more standard comparison. The thing about Adamant here, though, is that I'm facing a lead Roserade, which means that I'm going to be outsped, since Adamant base 100 reaches 299 and Timid Rose hits 306. Or 305 with HP Fire, since, I like my precise details. So that means I am going to get Sleep Powder, and then T-Spikes are going to go up. But I'm not really too worried, because, yes, T-Spikes are annoying, but I'm going to, the Sleep counter will be ticking, as Rose T-Spikes once, maybe twice, depending on the team. And, and most of them don't run HP Ice. But either way, I'm going to have pretty good odds of waking up and U-turning on the Rose. And then bringing in my Gliscor afterwards to either KO the Roserade if it stays in with U-turn, or if the Roserade switches, then, U-turn, get the switch advantage there. So yeah, either way, I'm U-turning into Rose, breaking the sash, bringing Gliscor, and for extra U-turn. Pretty simple, and even if the Sleep Powder and the T-Spikes go off, then I'm not really worried about that, because only 2 of my Pokemon are affected by T-Spikes, and Gastrodon has Recover, and Shaman has Leech Seed, so they're still, it's not like I'm running an Infernape, which would be completely, crippled by it. And then I have 4 Toxic Spike immune Pokemon in Raptor, Heatran, Gliscor, and Lucario. And the good thing is that if I'm facing a T-Spikes offense team, then I have good tools against those Pokemon in particular. Like, if there's an offensive Suicune, then I'm not going to be ruined by T-Spikes crippling my Shaman, because Staraptor outspeeds it and smacks it with Brave Bird. I have Heatran for several annoying Jirachi variants, and, Gliscor and Gastrodon can help out against even HP ground sets, if it even has it. Best of all is that my cleaner is Scarf Lucario, and Scarf Lucario is really good against T-Spike's offense because they generally favor, a bunch of special attackers, they boost on the special side, and, close combat rips through them. It's able to, put it this way, if I had, a Scarf Rotom, like another special Scarfer, then I would not be able to finish off things like half-health boosted Jirachi or something. But Lucario can do that really well. And it also rips through other special attackers like Heatran. And just generally a great cleanup option. The basic idea with this team, it's fun, but it's also got some semblance of strategy to it. It's basically blow open holes with Choice Band Staraptor because it destroys everything. And then you have a Balance Core to fall back on, which is important because Staraptor's not very good defensively, to say the least. And then, you spread some passive damage, and you weaken the opposing team some more, and then you clean up with Scarf Lucario. It's not the most, sound thing in the universe against, the metagame, because, it's mostly just ideas of pokes kind of slammed together. Like, this is my special wall Heatran, it's complemented by Gliscor because of typing and stuff. It's not really trying to execute an optimal Scarf Lucario sweep. I don't have things like spikes and pursuit and whatnot. But that's the general idea, It's a good combination of fun and strategy. So yeah, you have the physical destruction of Choice Band Raptor, and then you have the physical cleanup of speed and cleanup of Scarf Lucario. So, with all that out of the way, Roserade's gonna use Sleep Powder, and it's... Oh, my Staraptor is shiny, by the way, because it's amazing. Roserade's going to use Sleep Powder, and it's going to miss, which is really, really lucky, because that means I get to bring the Roserade down really low, and then threaten the U-turn KO, or take advantage of the switch with Gliscor, and the Roserade has accomplished nothing. My Staraptor... I don't remember if it has Sleep Talk or not. If it did, then that would have been fine, but I don't think so. I think I went with Double Edge instead, so I think I was planning on... staying in and just U-turn spamming, like I said. I was just thinking, did I put Sleep Talk on it? And then I realized no, because, Double Edge instead. I want Zapdos to think it's safe against Brave Bird in close combat and then just get deleted. Yeah, so I managed to get so that was really lucky, and I U-turn into Female Prisoner 701, Scorpion. Great movie, and I also have a Shiny Gliscor because Shiny is awesome, and I am also realizing that my Female Prisoner 701 is not actually female. That was an oversight by me, but yeah, great movie. So, and I just realized I said Gliscor like some sort of boring adult. Ugh. Don't you hate when you grow up and you start pronouncing Pokemon names correctly? I know Gliscor is incorrect, but I say it anyway because I like it better, and then I just said Gliscor like some sort of... Ugh. I'm disgusted with myself right now. So I really apologize for that. That was really uncalled for. So Gliscor... Yes, Gliding Scorpion, blah blah. Gliscor is going to go for U-turn here and either get the KO on Rose or take advantage of the switch. So, I mean, that was, fine, even with the T-Spikes, like I said, because so much of my team is immune to it. And, I mean, I'm fine with T-Spikes going up, since the goal is really to just weaken as much of the opposing team as possible, and then go to town with Scarf Lucario. So, T-Spikes are a fine price to pay for basically being able to KO an opposing Pokemon, or bring it in close to KO range, basically. So that would have been fine, but not having to deal with T-Spikes is also really helpful, obviously, so I am sorry about that, Thanos. That was really lucky. So, get the U-turn KO on Rose, and back to Staraptor, just because Braver... Well, it actually does have strategic value to it, besides just, lol, I want to click Brave Bird. A lot of Stealth Rockers, like T-Tar and Heatran, then they're not very eager to come in on Raptor. And even the Stealth Rockers that can take a hit from Raptor don't really take a hit super well. So either I'll prevent a Stealth Rocker from coming in, or I will, if a Stealth Rocker does come in, then I'm going to do a lot of damage to it. Either way, I am temporarily preventing Rocks up. So, preventing or punishing Rocks is the basic idea. And also, this comes with the extra strategical component of not revealing more Pokemon, which is really nice. So, this is why I wanted to slow this thing down, because, if you speed a Wi-Fi battle up, then I'm not going to get all these thoughts in there. This is why, when I narrate a showdown replay, then I, pause it so often. Otherwise, I'm never going to get all the thoughts out. So, yeah, now Rose goes down, and what's going to come in but a Stealth Rocker? One of the most popular Stealth Rockers in Gen 4, Swampert. So, like I said, if a bulky Rocker comes in, then I'm going to just attack it and do a lot of damage. And there's no Swampert that doesn't get 2 KO'd by Banded Brave Bird, because it's so strong. So even if it was like max HP, max defense, then it was still going to get absolutely trashed. But this looks more like just a max HP offensive Swampert, because this takes a ton of damage. Yeah, Staraptor knocking Swampert into the red is, from full, cleanly, is just a sight to behold. And, yeah, then rocks go up, whatever. Because now I either get the KO on Swampert and I'm up 6-4, or something else switches in. And that means something else is going to switch in and take huge damage from Banded Brave Bird. And that's going to be done for the purpose of preserving a low HP Swampert. A low HP Pokemon, which is very slow, so... yeah, I would welcome a switch. Because unless you're like a Skarmory or a Magnezone or like an invested Bronzong, then most other things are going to get hit really hard. Like even Resist. Like you would think, oh, there's plenty of flying resists in OU, but T-Tar, Heatran, Jirachi, I mean... offensive variants of those, like if this is a T-Spikes offense team and that's like an offensive Heatran coming in, it's going to get destroyed. So, same with like even offensive variants of Rotom. So, yeah, I would welcome them coming in. Yeah. So, Brave Bird again, and also this team does suggest that it's an offensive team as opposed to a more defensive team, because defensive teams can still lead off with Sash Rose, but they also would run a bulkier Swampert, and this being a more offensive Swampert suggests, offense. So, Swampert goes down, 6-4. Staraptor doing amazing things, as it always does. So in comes a T-Tar. Look at that Sprite, that pre-Heart Gold Soul Silver Sprite. And I make a mistake here. Fundamentally, the move is just click Brave Bird. But more strategically, then if I switch Staraptor out, then it's just going to be death fodder at best because it has a really tough time coming in. With such low health and rocks at this point. I would be better off just Brave Birding and figuring out what set it is. And I think I just was like, I want to preserve Staraptor because I have some good T-Tar answers on this team. Scarf Lucario is a good answer because, it checks even DD. Then I have things like Gliscor and Gastrodon and, even Shaman for backup. But the main reason I should have stayed in is just to scout the moveset. Because if I switch out and I, get KO'd by Pursuit, then, I don't know anything. But if I stay in Brave Bird, I learn what the set is. And I switched out, mostly I was thinking, what if he DDs? And in retrospect, that was foolish because, number one, he's only going to be able to DD once, realistically. Because Brave Bird does so much damage, he's not going to want to risk a second one, especially because he doesn't know if I have priority in the back or not. And also, he's not going to, when, he's down 2 Pokemon and the Staraptor is doing so much damage, he's not going to go for a DD most likely. And even if he does manage to DD twice and, wind up being faster than my Scarfluke, I still have a Gastrodon, which is physically defensive and can take any hit from it at +2. So there's no, I really did not have anything to fear from DD Tar, and I should have just, worse, I didn't think it through enough, and thus thought I did have something to fear from it potentially DDing. But, it wasn't going to DD, and it wasn't going to DD twice, and even if it did DD twice successfully, then, it was still going to be fine. That is, if it even is DD. DD Tar is not the most common on T-Spike's offense teams. So, all in all, I should have stayed in Brave Birded. And instead, I switch out, and I get KO'd by Pursuit, and do no damage to the T-Tar, and do not find out its set. So I don't know if it's Scarf, Band, or Mixed, or what's going on. So, all I know is that it has Pursuit, which does mean it's not DD, because Pursuit and DD are incompatible together. Otherwise, it totally would have been used, because it would be pretty cool. So I go to my Lucario, named after my old YouTube buddy, BlingoX24, and this Lucario is also shiny, because shiny Pokemon really are amazing. So, now that this T-Tar is scared out, I want to double switch because I want to get some rocks up. I don't want to just, go CCing into things, because that's how I might, that's how I'm going to start seeding momentum, just CCing into a Ghost. Because his only fighting resist so far has been a Sash Roserade lead, so it's safe to assume that with Swampert and T-Tar, obviously, he's going to need something to switch into fighting moves. So, that's going to come in here. He's not just going to let the T-Tar go and then, be down another Pokemon. He's going to have to... He doesn't have anything to handle SD Luke yet, so he's going to have to switch to it now. Because you can't just say, oh, well, every time Luke comes in on my T-Tar, I have to stay in, or it SDs and I get swept. So I'm going to double switch now. And while it's not a guarantee that the fighting resist is going to be something that lets my Heatran get up rocks, most of the time it is. If it's something like a Rotom or a Gengar or a Latias, then a Heatran can get up rocks on those. And being able to get rocks, chip on everything, that's going to make the Scarf Luke sweep later a lot easier. So, Luke comes in, and now is going to double switch right back out, looking for Heatran to come in on that common fighting resist. Ghost or Psychic, or even something like an offensive Jirachi, which is a good emergency Luke check, even though you don't love switching into Life Orb CC. And he goes to Metagross, which is kind of... Well, I was thinking, alright, this must be Scarf, because it's kind of like offensive Jirachi in that you don't love switching into CC at all, but you still outspeed and can threaten it back. So, I was thinking there's no way he would just send in Metagross to get 2 KO'd by Life Orb CC if it wasn't Scarf and couldn't check it. And even if it's not, then maybe he sees the lefties on my Heatran and just assumes I'm slow, and he's just going to stay in an EQ. And he might even be Akaberry. Metagross is generally not the most common thing on T-Spike's offense teams, so there's not enough information to go on just based off the team composition. Not yet, anyway. Especially because I don't have any information on T-Tar. Like, if I knew the T-Tar was Scarf, then I would say, okay, well, that that Metagross definitely isn't. You're not going to run Scarf-Tar and Scarf-Gross, most likely. And assuming that Lefty's Heatran is slow is pretty fair nowadays. In the golden days of Wi-Fi, then lots of offensive Heatrans ran Sub. Sub-Toxic or Sub-Will-O-Wisp were really popular sets. But I'm not going to just assume he's going to respect it, especially because there's the possibility of Scarf. So I'm going to check. I'm going to go to Gliscor, which I'm willfully mispronouncing, just in open defiance of everything. But it also just sounds better, so. So he does stay in and go for EQ. And the cool thing about Gliscor is that while it doesn't love going one-on-one with Metagross, it's that I have U-turn here, so I don't have to. I don't have to risk staying in and eating an Ice Punch here, because I can just U-turn. And if it is Scarf, it's going to switch, and if it stays in, then I know it's not Scarfed. And then I can send in my Gastrodon to deal with it. So, because Gliscor is generally a good Pokemon to have because of its speed, and, if I had to choose, risking Ice Punch and then Metagross blowing up on something else, I mean, it's not likely going to have Ice Punch and Explosion because they're competing for the last slot on Agiligros, but, it's generally better to just guarantee that Gastrodon is the one to go down than Gliscor, because Gliscor is generally a more all-purpose. I picked Gastrodon on this team because it's just a great... Hey, look, there's the U-turn with the capital T. Oh, look at that. Yeah, I picked Gastrodon on this team because it is a good general wall in the same vein as something like a Milotic, and it's got that awesome Rocks Resist, and the Swampert typing on a Pokemon with Recover, similar to Milotic, lets it act similarly to Milotic, minus the Rocks Neutrality and Sand's Affectedness. That's not the right word, but whatever. That sometimes irritate Milo. So it shrugs off Mash nicely. Also, this Gastrodon is named Astro after Maryland's Diamond playthrough, and because it's awesome like that. That's another thing we used to say. Yeah, I switched in my Heatran, which takes the hit like a beast because it's awesome like that. Yeah, you're in 2008 now. That's how we used to narrate. The Metagross is just going to blow up, and down goes Gastro, but it prevented the Metagross from blowing up on Gliscor, which is much appreciated. So now I have my Swiss Army Knife Gliscor, which can just keep a momentum with U-turn and wall stuff and be an offensive weapon in and of itself. Like there's a lot of cool things you can do with Gliscor, but when the only thing they have to deal with it is Suicune, and you can chip it into Gliscor KO range with Gliscor safely, then that's just beautiful. So yeah, Gastro is great, and Sticky Hold makes it immune to Trick, which is lovely. So down it goes, and it takes down Metagross with it, but hey, that's good. I'm glad it didn't just EQ my Heatran first, so that's the kind of pivoting games you gotta play here. So, the Gastrodon still would have been, with the T-Spikes down, the Gastrodon still would have been okay against Metagross because it has EQ, and it can take on Metagross's EQs just fine and recover them. So I think it still generally would have been okay. Obviously, it would have been more irritating, but yeah. And I might have had to go back to Gliscor and had Gliscor get blown up on, although I would have tried to avoid it. Yeah. So, now Luke comes back, and in comes another classic of Gen 4 Wi-Fi, Infernape. And here's the thing about Infernape. Mixape is a classic. Fire Blast, CC, Grass Knot, HP Ice. That was the old standard set everywhere, not just on Wi-Fi, but it was super popular on Wi-Fi. It became like a set synonymous with Gen 4 OU. Whereas nowadays it's not seen almost ever in high-level play. But the thing about, for all its weaknesses to passive damage and whatnot that have kind of knocked Infernape out, it's also very easy if you're running like a very balanced team like I am. It's really easy to have a lot of Pokemon weak to Infernape stabs. So that is why I am fearing this ape, because close combats and fire blast everything I have left. And even if I had Gastrodon, or besides Gliscor, who still doesn't take Fire Blast well, but it gets HP iced. And yeah, Gastrodon could have taken a Grass Knot because it's very light, but Gastrodon is down now, and Lucario's CC is not going to KO Infernape from full, nowhere close. So I really don't have any choice but to attack this thing and bring it down. Fortunately, on my Scarf Lucario, I run Copycat. Which is something that's taken off in the competitive worlds in the last year or so. And it's really good because it has a whole host of applications. Like, if you get roared in, then you can just, like, roar the opponent around until you run out of Copycat PP and just do a million hazard things to them. But in this situation, it's great because what was the last move used? Explosion by Metagross. So that means my Lucario can now Copycat that explosion and take the Infernape down with it. And no other move could have... Well, I guess if I had Earthquake Scarf Lucario, I could have done that. But, but I don't, because Earthquake Scarf Lucario sucks, so... And Copycat is good. So, yeah, Copycat, well, Copycat does what no other move could do, and it gives Lucario access to Explosion for this turn. So, my Lucario explodes on Infernape, and, double down. Yeah. So there's something I didn't think would happen, but yeah, a lot of Copycat Scarf Lucario teams that kind of, you know, try to make that boom happen naturally. Like if you pair it with like Choice Band Azelf, then you get a 1 down, because you take out like a T-Tar or Jirachi or something, and then you bring in Lucario, and then you Copycat Explode on the neutral poke, like Swampert or whatever, and get a KO where you otherwise wouldn't have. But yeah, here it can turn your opponent's moves against them, so that was just beautiful to see. It's like, oh, my Metagross can explode, what can possibly go wrong? Oh, well, now the Lucario learns Explosion as a result. I think that's awesome. So, yeah, now there's still an unknown Pokemon on the opposing team, but my defensive core is generally fine, and since that Pokemon is yet unknown, I go into a Pokemon with a generally good matchup spread against offensive stuff, which the opposing team clearly is, and that is a bulky Leech Protect Shaman, complete with Japanese nickname, and it's a Latias. So Latias is going to be annoying to deal with because I no longer have my sole source of real speed, which was Lucario. But I have a decent defensive core with Shaman, Heatran, and Gliscor. It's not ideal, but with if this Calm Minds, then I could definitely be in trouble. But most of the time, you're not going to Calm Mind, especially on an offensive team like this. And also, Latias reveals itself as the team's Fight Resist, so I now see why he wasn't eager to throw it into Lucario. So he was going to go to Metagross and bluff that it was Scarf, I think. That was his plan. So, because, you know, no smart Lucario player would just think, oh, well, this is clearly just being sacrificed. There's no way it could be Scarf. So, nice way to make up for the, for not wanting to send in Latias into the CC, because that would just make him more vulnerable to Lucario later on. So, nice move. Also, he might have Mach Punch on his Infernape if he was banded or physical mixed. So, he might have been able to prevent it, worst case. But yeah, so now I have Protect, because most of the time Latias is going to be Choice, because that's where its best sets come from. And if it locks into Draco, then we know that Heatran is a pretty safe switch. And even if he double switches to T-Tar, then Gliscor is still probably going to be able to deal with it. But the problem is that I don't know what the T-Tar set is, and it's at full health. So, and Brave Birding with Staraptor would have been really, really helpful for both of those purposes. It would have put it in Gliscor Earthquake range, maybe, and I would know if I had to fear it being banded, or if I could write it off as Scarfed. You know, now it's looking like the Latias is probably the Scarfer, because Infernape wasn't Scarfed, because it would have outsped Lucario. Metagross wasn't either. And I don't know if the T-Tar is, and it's like Specs Latias, but we'll find. It'd be more likely that it's Scarf Latias. Just because Scarftar is the only source of real speed, or Scarftar is your fastest Pokemon on a team that isn't super bulky, and on a team that's offensive, is very rare. Generally, if you're running an offensive team, then you want your fastest Pokemon, like your Scarf Pokemon, to outrun like D-Deers, which Scarftar does not. You can afford that on a really bulky team, but on a more offensive team, not most of the time. not saying it's a hard and fast rule. There were some offense teams which used fastest poke Scarf Tar and they were just fine. But generally, you assume the Scarf Lottie would make sense. But the good thing is that if the T-Tar double does not go off here, and it's not easy to switch around, make that T-Tar double because Shaman could theoretically stay. Since Shaman is not required, Shaman could easily stay in and just use Leech Seed. And I think that's what made him not so eager to double the T-Tar there. Because since Shaman is not really needed for these last two, I mean, it's nice, but it can also take a Specs Draco, especially because he doesn't know how bulky it is. So I think he just wants to do as much damage as possible if he Specs. And if he's Scarf, then it's even more difficult for him to deal with. So, and if T-Tar switches into that Leech Seed there, then it is good night. So I think it's more likely that he just wants to do as much damage to either the Shaman or the Heatran, and then switch into the Heatran with T-Tar, which is generally going to be pretty safe, especially if he's Lum. And yeah, I don't know the set because I should have Brave Birded with Raptor. So he does go for stay in, go for Draco, and I'm gonna see whether he Scarf or Specs from the damage. Draco goes off, and it is going to do Scarf damage. So, yeah, now I have the choice of, do I double back to Shaman? And in retrospect, I think that might have been my best move. Well, I guess no, Shaman is more important than I initially gave him credit for, because otherwise Latias spams Surf to win against Gliscor and Heatran. I mean, he doesn't know that it's not a Spadef Boom Heatran. This is actually a super ancient set from way, way back. It's Rocks, Overheat, Will-O-Wisp. I don't even remember what I made the last. I think Roar. Roar is the one I used to use a lot. I think it was called Burn Support on the Smog decks. It's like max HP, a little bit of special attack, like barely any, and pretty much max Spadef, and it's modest, and has Overheat as its fire stab, and I just thought it was the coolest set ever, and that's why I wanted to bring it back. It's a true classic. Explosion would have been fine too. Yeah, Rocks, Overheat, Wisp. That's really the crux of the set. With the modest nature and the max Spadef, that's what really makes it. And I liked Roar back then, and that's why I brought it here. So yeah, I did have to preserve Shaman for not getting swept by Surf, so I think maybe he could have doubled the T-Tar, but it was also a tough position because he also thinks, well, maybe he knows I'm Scarf Latias because it's unlikely that I'm Scarf T-Tar, so he wants to stand and get the Leech off. Because if I get the Leech off on Lottie and it's Scarf Draco and it's -2, then I will be able to outstall it pretty easily, and then T-Tar comes in, and then Latias either stays in and loses, or T-Tar comes in and might not. It's not going to threaten with DD, and if it's not DD, then I can handle it with Gliscor and Heatran and probably Shaman, and then I'll probably just be fine. I'm not going to go over. This is long enough, so I'm not going to go over every single possible line. But the general idea is that if Scarf Draco goes off on Leech Shaman and it gets Latias gets leeched, then Shaman might give a lot of problems. Like if it Seed Flares T-Tar on the switch, if it stays in and protects on Lottie trying to Draco again, it can even just stay in and Seed Flare again fairly safely, especially because he doesn't know how much bulk it has. It's actually pretty fast, but yeah. So the T-Tar double was not the easiest trigger to pull, not by a long shot. Although I really was considering staying in just because it seemed so clear, But then you could also think, oh, well, I need damage on the Shaman. I would like to damage the Heatran as well because it's blocking Draco spam, and I can get the free T-Tar switch into Heatran afterwards. So I think that line of logic is the most applicable. So now I decide to use Will-O-Wisp simply because Lum on T-Tar, it's just not that common. And being able to burn it would just completely ruin it, and that would be lights out. And I was thinking about Rocks just to chip the Latias coming back in, but I decided, you know what, T-Tar is potentially threatening, if it's banned or if it's mixed even, just burning it, that's the game. That would be perfect. So I go for Wisp, and I miss, and I can't really complain at all given the Sleep Powder miss earlier on. So that's totally fair. And so I decide Heatran got to get out of there. And the good thing is that even if it's banded, well, first of all, if he is banded, he's not gonna not want to go for Stone Edge, because if he goes for like Ice Punch, like if he is the rare Ice Punch Bantar or Aqua Tail, and Heatran scouts it, then he winds up doing way less than he could have if he just spams Stone Edge, because I don't have any Rock Resists left. So that's the good news, that he doesn't know I don't have Protect, even if he is banded. And if he is banded with Stone Edge, then yeah, I'm going to be forced to Roost, but, you know, then Latias comes in and I'm still in the game. So, not necessarily worried about that. Matter of fact, I might even be able to force a situation where Shaman gets to go crazy. So yeah, I wouldn't want to take a banned Stone Edge, but it's fine. And most mix sets don't run Ice Beam, simply because it's really hard for T-Tar to fit it into his move slot, and there's nothing that directly benefits from Gliscor being lured here. Like, Lucario is a classic example. Ice Beam T-Tar is a very common partner. Or not a very common partner, but it's like a classic partner for it, in that it lures Gliscor and you can Ice Beam it. But since there's nothing that really benefits like that, then it's very unlikely. So all in all, I feel quite confident in staying in with, or switching to Gliscor here, and not staying in with Heatran and going for another Wisp. So the Stone Edge misses. Now I don't know if it's banded or not, but it's definitely beneficial. Because even a lot of mixed T-Tars, the support ones with Pasho and stuff, then they like to run like Crunch, Suit, Fire Blast, Edge. I've always preferred Superpower, but Edge has been popular. So I decide, here's the tough part. Like, do I EQ on the Lottie switch, or do I, U-turn on the Lottie switch and then go to Shaman and Protect again and do this dance over again? Obviously, I would love to U-turn on the Lottie switch, but I decide eventually that, look, he's not going to want to give me the free U-turn, simply because he knows I have it, and if he doesn't necessarily need T-Tar at super high health. I mean, it'd definitely be helpful to be able to take a hit from Shaman or Gliscor later on, but I think he also wants to force Gliscor into roosting, because Latias is really threatening, and if he can get Latias in for free, i.e. on a roost, then that's when it's at its most threatening. And if it gets caught with a U-turn on the way in, then that's not going to work. So that's why I go for EQ, thinking he's going to stay in, and he does. So that's awesome. And I get lucky again, because that KOs, because it crits. So yeah, now at this point, then the game is over. So that really sucked for him. And I asked him after, like, hey, what was the moveset? Was it Bandit or whatever? It's like, oh, it was Pasho. So, so that's why it also, because Gliscor does not necessarily 2KO, like, 0 bulk T-Tar with EQ. It usually does. But if it was minus defense, then, it's always going to. So, and that also means that Staraptor would have done over half to it with Brave Bird if it was minus defense, like those Pasho Tars are. Which is another reason to regret not doing it, but hey, lesson learned. Next time, I don't switch out the Brave Birding poke. Yeah, I just forgot the golden rule of just spam Brave Bird. But yeah, Gliscor gets the KO, and so that means the Stone Edge wouldn't have necessarily forced the roost, but it definitely would have made things tougher, so. Yeah, luck was definitely on my side in this one, and I am sorry for that. Especially because Shaman protecting on the Latias and such also is made, if it's in sand, then it's already annoying, but with poison, that means Latias can just stay in and attack the Shaman, even if it's getting protected on, and the Shaman is still taking damage. So T-Spikes definitely would have helped out there. I definitely could have played this one better, too, because, yeah, now Latias comes in and, tricks Gliscor, because otherwise it's going to get ruined, but that also gives Gliscor, U-turn, or Scarf U-turn, and I just Scarf U-turn a bunch, worst case, and win. U-turn, sack something, U-turn again, sack the other thing, the other two, the other one of Heatran or Shaman, and then I U-turn a third time and win. So, yeah, but now it's also possible that Shaman just solos on its own. But yeah, I definitely could have played better. I should have Brave Birded the T-Tar, and I think there were a couple other things. But yeah, all in all, this was a really, really fun game. And we got to see some really cool things. We got to see Staraptor destroying Swampert. We got to see Gliscor, we got to see Lucario use Explosion. And yeah, so this was a real joy for me to get to play, and I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed my Now, you know, now with all my talking, then this has wound up becoming a pretty standard length video for me. So, yeah, that's not too bad. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Happy holidays if you're watching this at a holiday. And, yeah, I'm excited to continue making videos. I've been away for a little bit, but I have a lot in store, and, yeah, so, yeah, thanks for watching, and, I am going to let the music take us out.